And again, I have to stress, this is not a discussion about companies not being profitable. It's a discussion about including the human factor, including the sustainability, the resilience into the profitability equation.
Hello, and welcome to Love as a Business Strategy, a podcast that brings humanity to the workplace. We're here to talk about business, but we want to tackle topics that most business leaders shy away from. And we believe that humanity and love should be at the center of every successful business. I'm your host, Jeff Ma, and as always, I want to have conversations with real people and hear about real passions and businesses and practices. And today I have the executive director of AKFI, which is Actionable Knowledge Foundational Institute, a nonprofit bridging the divide between digital transformation and ESG. He's also a facilitator and instructor at Cornell for sustainability, digital transformation, innovation, and 5G. Please welcome to the show, Manuel Vexler. How's it going, Manuel?
Going fine, Jeff, and very glad to be on the show, and looking forward to solve some issues of how we connect purpose, how we connect love, how we connect businesses that really care about people.
Yeah. And my favorite type of episode is when it's not immediately apparent how this is all going to tie together, because it might not be, right, on its surface. Digital transformation or sustainability and all these things very specific in your field, and over here I'm interested in love and culture and all these other things. So I'm excited to have this talk.
Very excited too. And really, if we start with sustainability, sustainability has what we call it sometimes the triple bottom line. So profits were always the focus of enterprises, and I don't think we need to bring this forward today. The other two parts are social, the stakeholders in particular, not only the shareholders, which are looking after profitability, but the stakeholders, which include actually the community, include the employees, include the impact on the society in general, and the environmental, which is also a very important topic today. So if we focus on social, actually, it is very interesting to see that very recently, actually, we had a very interesting experience at AKFI, the Actionable Knowledge Foundational Institute, as we were talking about sustainability, and the inventor of Industry 5.0, which very few people heard about it, came and said, "We are really interested to talk with you," and we did a talk show together. And the Industry 5.0, it's human-centric. So when I started to look at the book, is it very clear that the humanity has to take back the central role? What I'm saying is the following: Industry 1.0, 2.0, 3.0, 4.0, they were technology driven. The steam engine, the electricity, the computer, and eventually artificial intelligence, IoT, and all these beautiful technologies, metaverse coming up soon. All these technologies are technology centric.
Mm-hmm.
Humans are using them and they benefit. Some benefit actually, and some don't have, as this technology create also big social displacements.
Mm-hmm.
But now the board of directors, the C-suite, the executives have to reconsider how they look at their business. And they have to go back to a human-centric model and to an environmental-centric model.
That's I have about 20,000 questions in my head already ready for you. But I want to make sure I want to get through a couple of things. I want to do it the right way. So a couple of things I want to do. I want to hear more about you first, and I'll get to that. And then I also want to help the audience define a couple of terms by your definition, just so that we could all be on the same page. And then I want to come back to all this sustainability and industry 5.0, all this stuff. So if you don't mind, I'd love to first make sure we get you personally, Manuel, what's your story and where does your passion come from?
Sure. First, my story, as you opened in the opening remarks, I'm very focused on two activities. One is related to university. It's related to adult education, to continuing education, in the space of new technologies and sustainability. New technologies are things like 5G, IoT, artificial intelligence. Sustainability, it's about ESG. It's about creating new business models that mix technologies with environmental and social. So this is me. My passion comes if I go really deep in my personal history. I'm a different engineer. I started and I worked my career in engineering. However, first thing, I'm a medical engineer. I'm a biomedical. Humans were always in my focus, and in the first year of university, I wanted actually to quit and go to medical school. So really, human it's something that I'm passionate about from, let's say, day one.
Mm.
And as I work in corporations, major corporations, I really realize that uh, it's much easier to manage technologies. It's much easier to build technologies. That it's really to put the human in the center, to think from the perspective of people, the perspective of the employees, the perspective of the shareholders. So this is my story. This is from day one and on. Going to some definitions as we wanted to mention, I'll mention terms like sustainability. And sustainability, it's a very broad term. We can spend the rest of the day adding adjectives to sustainability: sustainable business, sustainable agriculture, sustainable humanity, and so on. But really, sustainability from a corporate viewpoint, from a board of directors viewpoint, has to center on three, what we call it, the triple bottom line, on three very important and equal functions of the enterprise today. And these functions are social, are also environmental, and of course are economic. Enterprises are economic. Uh, Human enterprises are economic factors from day one. And for 50 years, since Milton Friedman stated the unique purpose of enterprise is to serve shareholders, the shareholder primacy, so-called. That was the only guidance for a board of directors. Their fiduciary responsibility, their personal responsibility was toward investors. That changed in the last 10 years. And this is about sustainability. So today, when I'm using sustainability, I'm using the definition of the triple bottom line. The other one we need to go through is the definition of ESG. Mm-hmm. And ESG, as many of the listeners, I'm sure they know, it's about environmental, social, and governance. So now if we put together the two, we can see a much more complete picture of the enterprise and how the enterprise can act socially, how the governance can act. So this is, I'll go back to ESG in a second. I'd like to add the third element, which is digital transformation. And there is a lot of confusion between digitalization, the process of using digital technologies, and digital transformation, because digital transformation is business model transformation. It is social. You have to retrain reskill your employees, and you impact the environment around you. And it is of course the technology, right? We talk about artificial intelligence, IoT, flying drones, self-driving cars, and so on. So we have three definitions now: sustainability, ESG, and digital transformation. When we look at ESG, I want to dwell a little bit more into it. And we have an outside view toward the enterprise, how the world looks at ESG. And that's primarily investors and insurance companies, right? Which are looking at ESG as a measurement of how well the companies prepare for survivability, is prepared for longevity, is prepared for resilience. So it's a measurement of resilience, if you want, in a simple way, right? Lower risk, better governance, better care of the environment, better relations with the ecosystem, the stakeholders. On the other hand, if you look from inside out, it's a how to do, if you want, for the boards of directors and for the executives, how to behave socially with their company, how to behave toward employees, diversity in the board of directors, diversity in the enterprise, and how to behave. So it is a code for a better business. And this is where I think the book comes in, because love of understanding of humanity, it's becoming a unavoidable area for the boards of directors and for the executives to consider. It cannot be left behind. Some companies try today to do something which is called greenwashing. Sooner or later, this will stop. One of the reasons is regulators are getting now on the case of companies doing greenwashing. Security and Exchange Commission, for instance, it's looking at disclosing greenhouse gases by companies. So ESG, it's both a look from outside in, how the investments flow toward these companies that are better managed and more environmentally conscious, and of course how they manage their employees, the relationship with their customers, and from inside out, how the I'm hesitant to use the word behavior, but really how executives have to behave. It's a behavior. It's a code of behavior, a code of good behavior.
Oh, I'm not hesitant to use that word at all, and I think that's one of my favorite words. I'm glad you went there. Um, Obviously, from my perspective, from Love as a Business Strategy, I'm starting to see the connective tissue, and it's really interesting to think about ESG and sustainability from both of those outside in and inside out perspectives, because we kind of don't go into that space of the actual policies, the actual governance of those things. But what I do see is where we talk about just resilience, and I think resilience is in our kind of subtitle of the book, and it's also something that we talk about quite a bit when it comes to being able to tie your behaviors to the actual business outcomes that every business should be looking at. And when we say resilience, we really come at it from a high performing team perspective. But if you think of a business as nothing more than a large high performing team or a combination of many high performing teams, you come to the realization that it is all connected. The resilience needs to be there from a people and behavior standpoint, in order to be successful in the process changes and the tool changes and the digital transformation that many companies seek. And so I hear all the things, like all the things that you've just defined for us. are things that I've seen many businesses try to tackle without regard for the people element, whether you call it love or just culture, but also more specifically resilience and sustainability from the social side. And then you face challenges, right? You face you're not able to actually succeed.
Absolutely. If we think of maximalization, and what companies were doing in the past was to maximize the profitability in short term,
Hmm.
to the point of companies even, crossing the legal limit and ending with fraud,
Hmm.
but trying to really focus only on a single element, which is short-term profitability.
Yeah.
And if you take a short-term profitability approach, of course, you don't care about your employees. You don't care about your assets, hard assets, right? You push your machines to the limit. You don't maintain them because it's costly. And the same with humans, right? But if you want resilience, and if you want to pick winners in the resilience, you have to look at what I define as the digital transformation, for instance, which is the latest transformation process. And the transformation process, as I define it, is not solely technology. 70 to 80% of companies fail because they introduce technology and they say, okay, now I bought cloud. Uh, and I cannot pay back my investment because I didn't train my people. I didn't inform them. People are concerned about their jobs. People feel, a second-class citizen in the company because the machine takes over. AI it's more right than you. So of course, the resilience goes down in this process.
Yeah.
So people are not brought on board. New business models are sort of dumped on the company, and platform business models. I'm sure your company is very much into that, automation, but it doesn't look at the human aspect. How you how you reskill your people, how you use them for more fulfilling jobs. Many people hate to do data entry. I'm one of them. Just entering data on a form. This is not a human job. But if nobody tells me and I'm a data entry person, uh, I'll really be scared about my mortgage and my loans.
Yeah,
Uh,
and
uh,
for me, underpinning all of that is also that any type of major change that you're trying to go through requires a certain amount of trust and relationship amongst the people who are going through it together. And I think too many times, even if a lot of businesses have considered themselves successful in their planning, when they say, okay, we want to take on this new digital transformation. So, we're going to go agile, and we're going to bring in trainers for the right process, and we're going to bring in all the best kind of preparation in terms of, and that's great. And it's all there. And because I think they're thinking of the people, because they're trying to get people prepared, but they kind of miss out that a lot of the people are still wondering why, or what's in it for me, or just don't trust their boss. They just don't trust the
sure,
organization, the people around them. And I think when you don't have those core pieces, all those other things kind of fall flat, because people aren't listening, people aren't actually bought into this change, and no amount of process is actually going to fix that.
absolutely. I'll touch on 2 points. One clear example is M&As, mergers and acquisitions. And this is an extreme example because especially companies during an M&A process, and I was involved at Cisco in M&As, they started with a very, very small group. There are regulatory, there are legal implications when you start this process. You cannot involve the whole company.
Mhm.
So the trust in the executives doing this process has to be very large. And the ability of these executives to come out and communicate and explain why this was done in secrecy, not just say, okay, from tomorrow you have a Cisco badge or a Microsoft badge or a Amazon badge. That's not enough.
Mhm.
It's not answering any question. This is a process, right? You have a different badge. So M&A is one clear example of that. But in any manual, in any book, in any article, you find out, and we have problems with communications. And where the problems with communication starts is with an open door, with trust. If you don't trust what I'm saying, if you don't think that I'm Manuel Vexler, um, there's no human relationship between us.
Yeah.
I may be an avatar, I may be somebody else.
Yeah, and I think too often communication efforts about these big rollouts are so focused on like the content, and in some cases they're being completely transparent. They're being completely honest to be in like the factual kind of things they're sharing
Sure.
is real, and yet what you see is that it's how you communicate it. It's how you
Is
connect
the
with the people.
is this trust element, which it doesn't come from a fact sheet or from a not an expense, a financial report. We did fantastic. We improve our ROI by 5% and this and that. You guys are great. Is this a right communication for a human?
Yeah.
How many people really care about the finance? They care more about knowing they work together. They care about their family, right? The outside circle, the inside circle. They care about colleagues. Because how many times these communications are made and then you hear, and by the way, we have to reduce our workforce by 10%.
Yep.
And of course, people trust the last message, not the first.
And this is why I loved that you just say behaviors or you use behaviors, because when you think about it, that is the how, right? Like how you communicate is nothing but your behavior. And
Sure.
it can be as simple as that, but it's also as complicated as that, because with all the right intents and all the right like what you would consider the right mindset, sometimes going into this, you'll still see struggles because of how we actually communicate, how we come across as leaders of change.
I'll give you an image. You reminded me about a case. This is a company that went bankrupt, one of the largest Canadian companies in telecom. And we had a very dictator-like executive.
Mhm.
And was a big inauguration. They brought us by buses to a big place. And there are these two presidents, the president of R&D and the president of the company. And they have to cut a cake. And the president of R&D holds a really large knife. And he tells the president of the company, I'm not going to give you the knife because you're going to cut. What do you think was the message? Well, the company went bankrupt, so we know what the message was. The company was going the wrong way.
Hmm.
This is in front of, major employee meeting.
Wow. I want to have time to talk a little bit about industry 4.0 to 5.0, or just this
Sure.
transition, because I find that very interesting. I know you already gave a bit of a primer to it in the beginning, but can you talk about what is industry 4 and 5, and like kind of give us the
Sure.
primer on that, please?
We tend again to talk about industries in terms of technologies, but each technology brings a major social change and environmental change. I would think that we're destroying much more rapidly the environment today as the industries are growing, although there are supposedly cleaner. We use electricity, not steam from the steam engines in Industry 2.0, for instance. But Industry 5.0 has two elements. And the element, the intent of Industry 5.0, of the advocate, the father of Industry 5.0, it's a wasteless, human-centric enterprise. There is a human-centric part, but it's also the fact that we design and we manufacture for waste. So if we start to think again, if we make our people as executives to think how to design without waste, it will be a cleaner and much faster environment.
Mm-hmm.
This idea had been picked up by the European Community, the EC, which is now issuing a number of policies. And as any good idea gets a little bit transformed by policies in implementations and so on, regulations, but there is an Industry 5.0 effort inside the European Community to address the issues of sustainability and resilience. And it's human-centric. This industry is no longer about using computers or using machines. It's about asking humans to behave in a certain way collectively when they design, when they manufacture, when they transport, when they distribute, when they sell, when they use.
I'm so drawn to this 5.0 because, as I said at the beginning of the show, our entire mission with Love as a Business Strategy is to bring humanity back to the workplace. And it's almost this direct space that connects, because the workplace has been nothing more than how the industries have evolved along with it, right? The workplace it is the industry. And so to see that as technology, you would think that each iteration would just be more and more technology, more and more aggressive, more and more greed. It is so refreshing to see that the next evolution is trying to bring it back, if you will, or bring it, into the space that tries to correct kind of the wrongs of where the misguided kind of path that we've been on. And so I find that really, really, really exciting.
I think, Jeff, you're absolutely right. And I think people have different views of how far we push or we can still push the environment. We face a big transition because all the new energy, renewables, and so on, for instance, will require the humans to take a deep understanding of why it has to happen.
Mm-hmm.
It is about the future. Is the future of the future generations. Is the generations of our children and grandchildren. And it's an effort that very few people will accept without a deep understanding of why it needs to happen.
Yes.
And yes, it has to start with the enterprise, because especially in industrial societies, which is a large part now of the world. And by industrial, I include also agriculture, because agriculture becomes more industrial. So if you look at the economics, the people have to take control back from the technology,
Mm-hmm.
and have to have a deeper understanding how to use it, not only to measure on a profit line. And again, I have to stress, this is not a discussion about companies not being profitable. It's a discussion about including the human factor, including the sustainability, the resilience into the profitability equation. I'll
Yeah.
give you an example about 5.0, because that was a discussion I had with the inventor of this 5.0 wasteless. Our equations, our economic equations, profit and loss, profitability, and so on, have two factors: the cost of resources, humans and materials, and the value of the sale, what we end up with sales. But if you start to subtract the waste, if you have to add the waste, you subtract the waste from the inputs in this equation, you end up with a better profitability because people will think better. People will feel better about it. It's not about cutting, our meals in half and eat less, or watching less movies. It's about thinking in a different paradigm.
That makes a lot of sense. I love that. Um, we're coming up to the end here, so I want to make sure that I leave the audience also with kind of a what should we do? Kind of like if we hear this, I'm hearing that, one of my missions with every episode here is to get people to look at work and the world and themselves differently, right? Change a mindset or two with each episode. Hopefully someone listening can have an aha moment and shift their mindset around how they view work, how they view their colleagues, or how they view business. And so I want to just open up that space for you to help share the audience. What what can we change in their minds today, or what should they do about it?
Um, I would go and talk about two things: the individual mind and the collective mind. And clearly, executives have a role model in the collective mind. So changing the collective mind cannot come, okay, it can come from some individuals inside a group, but it has to be sanctioned, it has to be motivated, it has to be approved, if you want, by the top, because we are still in a hierarchical society, regardless how flat we think it is. Now, the individual mind is really education. It's understanding that in a modern society, we cannot stop with a degree or before a degree and never go back to learn. I didn't say school, I said learn. Learning, curiosity has to be part of our mindset if we want to discover how we can balance this sustainability model that I mentioned before, which is profitability, which is related to the welfare of people, with also social and environmental responsibilities. And I think we can do it. We're very good at solving problems. Now, as I started, I'm an engineer. So engineers, you give them a problem, they'll eventually solve it.
Mm-hmm.
So the solution is not in one place. It's in the leadership and it is in the people. You cannot have only half and hope that transformation will happen.
I agree 100%. Manuel, thank you so much for your insights today and sharing kind of this really important conversation and really insightful look into sustainability and the industry. Thank you so much for sharing that with us today.
Jeff, appreciate it and hope we'll meet again soon.
Absolutely. And to our listeners, thank you so much for loyally listening along. As you know, we release every week new episodes, and if you have not already, of course, please check out our book, Love as a Business Strategy. And with that, thank you, Manuel, and thank you to everybody. We'll see you all next week.